Well, good late morning to you, Susan.
Happy week. What day is today?
I know, Wednesday.
Wednesday. Happy
Yes.
Wednesday.
In our organization at Humareso, it's Woof Woof Wednesday.
Woof Woof Wednesday.
We post pictures of dogs.
Well, I have a new dog, actually. We just got in July. Her
Okay.
name is Crosby. I've never been a dog owner before, so this is a new experience.
In your entire life? This
My
is the
entire
first time?
life, first dog.
So why?
Because my daughter did 2 Canva presentations begging me for a dog. Yes.
2 Canva presentations. I mean, I love that.
She was very, very, very persuasive.
She's driven?
A little bit like me, yeah.
I was going to say, I don't know where she would get that from. That's
But of
so,
course, guess who's taking care of the dog?
Yeah, right.
Mom.
Right. You sound like my wife. I'm like, you wanted the dog, but you're the one who's trained, not the dog.
That's right. But I will say her name's Crosby. She's an Australian Labradoodle. She's
you have
real
to
cute.
Text me a picture. We'll put her up on Wolf Wolf Wednesday.
I will.
So again, everybody get to talk with Susan LaMotte today. I would love for you to give a little bit of background on, because it will be surprising, but some people may not know your story. Can you walk us through how you got where you are and obviously ultimately being a part of things here?
Yeah, for sure. So I am Susan LaMotte. I am the Vice President of Employer Branding for Shaker. Prior to this role, we were just acquired by Shaker. I ran a company called Exacquio. We were an employer brand and experience consulting firm. I did that for almost 14 years. And then prior to that,
14?
I know, isn't that wild? I have grown up in the space. So I've spent almost 25 years at what I always say is at the intersection of where business meets behavior.
Yep.
So I've always been fascinated about how we have this employment relationship, right? This relationship with work. And we have to figure out how we can have that impact and have this relationship with work, but also recognize we're working for businesses that need to make money and have a mission and all of those pieces. So I spent my whole career in HR, from Marriott to Ritz-Carlton. I spent some time at Anderson, Home Depot.
Yeah.
So I've been everywhere.
So just to pick on one thing you said.
Yeah.
So the interest in this for you, when it really drilled down, is that because you had unfavorable experiences as an employee early on, or was it always kind of something that you were interested in from an educational standpoint?
For me, it was, I've always had a really strong work ethic from being a kid, and my parents instilled that with me. I think I've had over 36 jobs in my life. So I'm 50, 36 jobs. You can do the math.
Yeah.
But I started working at 13. I got fired from my first job. That was an experience. Later on, I was a head cashier for a big drugstore chain called Drug Emporium.
Oh my gosh.
I got fired for that job because the safe was missing $20 the next morning.
And they fired you.
I still don't know where that $20 went.
Yeah.
But I think all of those experiences, you realize work is so inherent. Very few people don't have to work.
Yeah.
And so to be able to think about the impact it has on your life, I've always thought you shouldn't do a job because someone says, oh, you're good at it, or dad was an accountant, so I should be. You should really think about where that right place is. And that's why employer brand has always been so intriguing.
Fascinating about Drug Emporium. I haven't thought about that brand in a long time. My best friend in high school worked at Drug Emporium in town, and he did not get fired. He should have, but he did not.
It was a very formative experience to work in customer service.
I bet. You mentioned also, though, the recent acquisition of your organization. So, as we were talking earlier, the A word is happening a lot, right? There are companies being acquired, scooped up, but knowing you and how much all of what you just talked about matters to your philosophy of work. Why now? Why Shaker? What kind of organizational alignment do you see there?
Thank you for asking, first of all, because I think, our space, when we look at the entire HR industry, acquisition's always been a part of growth, especially on the tech side. And there's so much focus on tech acquisition, particularly in this age of AI. And so I think if you look on the tech side, organizations are looking to see, where are there gaps in their own tech stack to be able to say, okay, we need to fill this part of the talent lifecycle with a piece of technology. And so that's always powered the tech piece. But I've long argued that we need to be thinking about HR from a strategic lens. And technology is a driver. It's not an outcome, and it's not a strategy. And so that's the space that we've always created at Exacquio, was we're going to come in and help you think about how can you leverage those things most effectively. We were always independent. We didn't have partnerships or referrals for that reason, so that we could be truly independent on behalf of our clients. And so as we've been growing over the past 14 years, I knew there was an opportunity to grow further and farther, particularly with AI, because as a lot of this tech is consolidated, you're going to need strategy. And so I was really looking for, as I was thinking about what the next age of Exacquio would be, I was looking for a partner organization that was strategic, that had a leader that was not only well respected, but that had a place for us, saw the value in our strategy.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's key is, and the reason why the Shaker Exactly fit is so great is we really close the life cycle for them.
Yeah.
So now Shaker can really truly offer everything across the entire talent lifecycle, from deep custom data on the front end all the way through to talent delivery. So we're excited about bringing our organizations together.
I mean, I love it for you, and congratulations, by the way.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
I haven't gotten to do it in person, so congratulations.
Thank you.
But in what you shared, I think one thing that's fascinating to me in this AI age, everything's AI, right?
Yeah.
But it's moving so rapidly. It's really hard to have mastery in the area because of how quickly it's moving, right? And so I'm curious, like, knowing that reality to be the case, and obviously this isn't exclusive just to you, like we're all facing this. I was just sharing with someone this morning, a year ago, maybe you had 20% of organizations talking about agentic AI. Now it's table stakes. Everybody's got it. So with it moving so quickly, it's really difficult to sort of think as strategically with as much forethought. How do you kind of help in that, considering that for organizations?
Two ways. One is recognizing that you need the strategy, right? So and I love HR tech, don't get me wrong.
Yep.
But if any HR tech provider comes in and says, we're going to solve this strategic problem for you, it's not.
Right.
It is, like I said, it's the driver. And we
Right.
need technology. The tech that exists right now is amazing. I'm so excited about where it's all headed. But we're missing that overlay piece, that piece to say, how does it actually fit? Instead of reverse engineering.
Yeah.
So for us, as we think about the role of technology, it has to be this enabler and not the driver, and that's where the strategy piece can come into play.
Yeah.
And why I think it's so important to be thinking strategically. The other piece is, if you think about a lot of the HR tech founders, they don't come from HR.
That's right.
And so I've got a lot of scars. So does our team. A lot of us come from in-house. We've been practitioners. So it's not just the traditional sort of startup of, I saw a problem. I interviewed for a job and it was a terrible experience. So I set out to create a new tech.
Right.
Which is great. That's what startups are about. But strategy is really about understanding the politics of the organization, right? The critical drivers of what the CEO and the board are looking for at that senior most level. And if you do that and you start there and you have a partner like you have in us to think through, how do we take what the CEO and board want to do and translate that and then use technology to enable that? That's where we can be most helpful.
And I find that to be really difficult for a lot of organizations because and I don't mean this about anybody in particular, just like you're saying about HR tech. I mean, there's lots of great HR tech product out there, right?
For sure.
But I don't know that we do such a great job of building up our leadership in HR, in TA, with some of the critical thinking necessary to have even engage in some of those conversations. I mean, what you're bringing to the table is that layer of critical analysis that
100%.
Right, that too many of our friends haven't been afforded an opportunity to be grown in and taught. And I don't mean that, again, as a slight to them. We just haven't really been very effective in doing that for our own.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure you've observed the same thing. So what should we be doing?
I think it's the proactivity versus the reactivity. Right now, we are in, as an industry, such a reactive state.
Oh, gosh.
The budgets are tight. Let's do a layoff.
Yeah.
Right? We'll build back. Cut down, build back, cut down, build back. And that might be great short term for the balance sheet, but it does not build strategically your pipeline for the organization. So I think part of it is recognizing when you're in that state, it is really hard to get ahead and think critically because you're reacting to whatever your CEO is telling you to do or your board is telling you. And so I think for a lot of the Fortune 500 organizations that we work with, the most effective way is to shift from this mindset of I'm reacting to at least making time and resource investments for critical thinking so that you can at least get ahead and you're not reacting to say, okay, we'll do a layoff, but you're putting something else as an alternative in front of your leadership. And the best way to do that is with data. I think so much of the time HR reacts to the data they're getting from tech as opposed to saying, what is the data we need? And then going out and seeking that. And I'll give you an example. Just this morning, we presented to a client in the healthcare space, and we did a culture assessment for them to help them understand, here's where your employees feel like they currently are culturally, and we have the dimensions that we measure, and here's where they want to be.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that the leader reacts to that and says, oh, shoot, like our employees want to be more, developmentally strong.
Right.
We need to shift our culture to be more of a learning culture. No, it's where does the organization need to be?
Yeah.
As a leader, what it did is it helped that particular CEO that we presented to say, here's where your employees are. Do you want them to be here?
Yes.
Here's what they need. They're saying they need. Is that, if you give them that, is that going to drive the organization forward?
Right.
This is a high growth company.
Yes.
So quite frankly, they shouldn't be putting all their energy into development and learning and growth. It is on the fly. It is taking initiative. And so he now knows, okay, I've got a lot of change management to do.
Yep.
I have a lot of communication to do.
Yep.
That's the critical thinking piece we love.
And it's, it's so interesting. Honestly, we could talk for hours, but, it's so interesting because sometimes we look at the ideal, and I'm not taking away from the fact that it is the ideal. And so I'll use a different example, right? When you think about fitness health.
Yeah.
And you're like, gosh, at my height, I should be this much weight. My waist should be a 34 or whatever it is, right? For a guy, I'd say 6 foot, I should be a 34-inch waist. Okay. Well, you're at a 44 right now. And so when I show you the data that says 34 is most ideal.
Yeah.
I'm not taking away from the fact that 34 is most ideal, but 44 to 34, that's a journey.
Yeah.
And so sometimes what we do when we look at the data is say, this is where everything's firing on all cylinders, but you're so far away from that in significant ways, that's too much of a jump.
Yeah.
And we have sometimes the process of trying to win people over to say incrementally, with effort and intention, we'll get there. But to try to go from 44 to 34 in a month,
it's impossible.
It's impossible and unhealthy.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I think that's where, again, I'm curious, do you find that more leadership is open to that kind of conversation from you and the team?
Yes is the short answer.
Yep.
However, I think there's 2 myths we need to dispel. One is that everybody needs to even get to the ideal. So a lot of times, and I've said this over and over, across the years, someone will call us and say, we want to be a great place to work. And I say, for whom? Right? Because ultimately, we shouldn't all aspire to be number one on a list. If you're going through change or transformation, or you're in a certain place, maybe you're coming out of bankruptcy, it's really important to have the critical thinking around where the org is, and then figure out the strategy for that. So, for example, if you are using your health analogy, if your genetic body type is such that no one in your family is ever going to get to a 34. Or, quite frankly, you like cupcakes. Right? And they make you happy.
Yes.
You have to figure out what your ideal is.
Yes.
And I think this is the problem, is we're so focused on best practices. It's like, oh my gosh, look what that company's doing over there. We want that.
Yep.
I call it the CEO email effect.
Yeah.
Where your CEO reads something in the Wall Street Journal or the Economist or Fast Company and says, what are we doing about this?
Yes. Goes
and
to
then
a
all of a
listage
sudden,
group and all.
It's the flurry. Like, let's create an initiative. Let's have a working team. No one ever stopped to critically think and say, well, we shouldn't be doing this. Or how do we know, what are the results here? How do we know that what they're doing is right?
Yes.
Even though they've got that short-term data that might say that, what's the long-term effect?
Right.
But that's the other challenge with AI, is we're losing the opportunity to teach people how to critically think.
Correct.
Which is a huge concern of mine. And I love AI and I use it every day.
No, of course. But I think we're seeing the deficit of that. I totally agree.
100%.
So, like I said, we could talk for hours. I'm so glad you stopped by.
Thank
you
you
for doing this as well. And best of luck in these next steps. Right?
Thank you. I appreciate
It's going
that.
to be awesome. I'm
Thank
so
you.
excited to see the success. Thanks, Susan.
I appreciate it. Thanks for your time.